You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
So, Rob, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
So, tell the listeners a little bit about how did you get into the podcasting world? What is it that compelled you to do what you do?
Well, it actually started in 1999. I was doing search engine consulting at the time, back in the early days of the web and the internet, and was just starting my own business on the side, helping companies get indexed and to help grow their businesses online with the growth and the development of the internet back in 1999. So I was doing that kind of 98, 99 timeframe. Okay. And walked into a radio station in the Seattle market and started doing a radio show about the growth and development of the World Wide Web and the internet. So I was trying to take my consulting business that I was doing and extend it out to a much wider audience was the goal, so I could pick up more clients.
So you saw an impressional angle there, I guess. When podcasting kind of came about, you realized it was search engine optimization that you were in that kind of world for a while, and you realized like there's a whole different impression angle out there from the radio standpoint.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, because when I started doing the radio show, podcasting didn't really exist. So it was like 3 or 4 years before podcasting started. So when podcasting started, it was a pretty easy transition for me because I was already creating, a show. I did that for 6 years. So it was really just a matter of me taking the audio out of the radio station, bringing it home on a cassette tape, playing it into my computer and creating an MP3 file. So, and then I would post a link to that off my website. So I started doing that in like 99, 2000. And then started working with Real and Windows Media streaming servers back then, because people were on very tight bandwidth connections back then. People were off of 28.8 modems and things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It was a very slow time for internet connectivity.
Sure.
So I had to really squeeze my show down to a very small size, and so that's how I got into this, was really taking radio and putting it online and doing what would be termed content marketing of sorts.
Yeah,
I was writing articles for newspapers and doing a lot of online publishing of written text, and I would basically link up the audio with the text in the articles and would share them out as part of a search engine strategy. And so my audio was writing with the text more and more. I mean, that's a common practice now in the news industry. I
was going to say you were way ahead of the game at that point, weren't you? Because I know the SEO world, not nearly as well as probably you do, but understanding, having several companies, you break down. Now there's a lot of analytics, and of course the voice to text world and show notes and blogs, you name it, from a podcast world. But you were saying that, kind of an innovator in that, understanding that, hey, listen, if we're able to put this voice into text, whether it be blog articles, your SEO value skyrockets.
Right. It's about using text as a loss leader to get people into the audio, which was what my goal was at the time, because I was trying to drive audience for the radio show. Okay. And I was using the internet as a marketing vehicle to accomplish that. And as it's turned out, after 20 some years, or that's a common practice in the news industry now, with content that now it's more about video. I wasn't doing video back then because there was not enough bandwidth to do video back then, really.
Yeah, you're really limited. You're right. It's funny that we take that for granted now, and understanding the game for so long that you've been a part of. I can't even fathom, I guess, at that point, if I'm looking for people to interview, possibly they have to have a specific speed rate, right? They got now it's like, maybe you have a good microphone. Even nowadays, microphones are getting better and better, even on a laptop, right? But as long as you're quiet somewhere. But you're right. So then you had to really, you're limited on who you could chat with or not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all done over telephone calls.
Oh, sure.
But back in those days, I was just towards the middle part of the 2000s. I was starting to get into Skype. In bringing Skype into my home studio, because I wound up taking the radio show out of the studio after a couple of years of getting extremely frustrated of doing my show in a radio station, and started to pre-produce the whole show in advance, because at the time I was working full-time jobs and I was working for .com startups and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I would actually create the show in segments throughout the week, and then the show would air on Saturday mornings. So I would just bring a CD down to the radio station and give it to the radio station, and they would just play the CD. So versus me having to go into the studio and actually do it live, which is prone to a lot of production mistakes.
I'd love to hear that. So can we chat about that a little bit? You said, Rob, you were working on full time while starting the radio station,
right? Yeah,
awesome. Okay,
exactly. I would come into my home studio and during lunch hours from work, and I would do an interview, or I would record a segment for the show that would be aired at the end of the week on Saturdays. So that was my production flow, because I was trying to juggle it with a full-time job. So it was always kind of a balancing act, and it was almost like putting a jigsaw puzzle together every week. So it was a lot of work. I've kind of progressed now. I mean, the podcast I do now is I just drop down my mic, just like what we're doing right now.
Sure.
And there's very little prep for the new media show that I do, talking about the development of the podcasting industry. But if I think about it from the contrast of what I used to do, everything was very highly scripted. It was down to the second, to the other end of the spectrum, which is not having any preparation, and then just doing it off of the top of my head with a co-host that were extremely knowledgeable about a particular subject area, because we live it and breathe it all day long, every week. So coming up with topics to talk about is not difficult when you're living and breathing something that's your passion in your life. And I think that's the other key takeaway of what has kept me going down this path is that doing a show like this has become a passion for me. It's kind of my life vocation. I love all the people that are involved in doing this kind of work. They're all terrific communicators. They're all fantastic people that care about learning, and it's just really it creates a really dynamic environment for my life to be in this community and to support this podcaster community that's blown up over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I know it really has. And within the last 3 or 4 years alone, sure, it definitely had. I mean, that got me into it and understanding a little bit. But I think you had a really good point there, Rob, as far as the people that are involved are all quite passionate about whether it's just their topic, but at the end of the day, the core of learning and understanding and growing and having a platform to tell others or teach others, I think is really cool. And plus, you said something I think that I always like. We have a lot of entrepreneur listeners. The goal is to be able to get some ideas and great value bombs out there, and working full time. And I think Jim Rohn said it best. You probably know Jim Rohn. He always said it best, where you work full time on your job, something along the lines of part time on your dream and your career. And so that a lot of entrepreneurs are scared to take that dive because they don't have maybe the financing, and so they figure I can't do it because I got to work full time. But knowing that you can do that and on the side build out that dream, so eventually that turns into your life, I think it's pretty awesome what you did there, Rob.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a fun journey, and it's been going for when I started this journey, it was about 20 years ago. But the podcast experience that I've had has been just a little over 15 years now. And have been spending a lot of time working behind the scenes too, working with other podcasters and other radio folks to help them understand this new medium and to help them be successful as well. So that's been the overall career direction that I've taken, and it's taken me through a variety of different jobs and positions in the industry as the medium has grown. But through it all, it was like keeping a focus on what the potential of this medium is, and understanding it at a deep level, and committing myself to working it and being consistent with it through sometimes some kind of difficult times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think if you look back now, what do you wish you knew prior to starting the podcasting world and or just being in the marketing medium that you're in? What do you wish you knew when you started out, now that you know all of this information from your stories?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of psychological stuff, because when I started in this, I didn't have a lot of confidence in my knowledge or my skills or anything, because I was at a very early stage of just learning.
Sure.
I was using this medium as a way to learn from others that had expertise that I didn't have, and also just how to use a microphone, how to present, how to be comfortable on stage in front of an audience presenting. I was in the past, I was scared to death to just talk. I mean, when I was a younger man, I didn't like talking very much. I was a sports guy. I played basketball. I just didn't talk that much.
Yeah.
And then I got an education. I graduated from college and started working in the working world, and it became more apparent to me, and that a skill of being able to talk and communicate was going to be an important skill with the development of the World Wide Web and the internet.
Right.
Those skills, and as we look to the future and we look at technology today, with these smart agent technologies, the Siri and the Alexa and the Google Home, our abilities as humans to verbally communicate is going to be more important than ever. And I think in jobs and in positions, your ability to present and to be taken as a credible presenter is more important now than ever for job success and career success.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, voice 100%. Live Nation is taking over. If you're not, people are looking at that not only to understand how voice is going to affect just businesses and your daily life, but people in the markets are really highly invested into the voice platform. It makes sense. Everything's coming to voice. I don't care if they're going to have smart fans one day on my desk and they say, voice, lower the, and you're going to simply say, I want more air, less air. It's right. I can't even say the word Alexa, because if I do, it's going to pop on right now.
Oh, I know exactly.
Yeah, I can't do that, right? But if I do,
there's always a danger of that, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Of doing that, and when I do these interviews, it's always in the back of my mind, say I can't say that word.
No.
But I do occasionally anyway. But it's probably safer for me to say kind of like these smart speakers or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you just say the name of the smart speaker. Means. Yeah. Right. Because if not, it's going to ruin my audio.
But it does kind of it points out an intriguing angle on this is that that's how important these things are starting to become in our lives, and they're listening at all times, right?
I know. That's a whole different topic. I know a lot of people are going to probably look for it at one point, but they already are. There's a lot of data out there about that. But you're right. They're always listening.
Well, and they're going to be more a part of our lives than ever as these technologies get integrated into our devices, into our homes, into our appliances. Yep. We're going to be surrounded by this, and they're always going to be listening, which can be a little creepy. But
right. It could be a little creepy. A lot of people think that, especially the Big Brother world is that it kind of freaks you out a little bit, but you don't even think about it, right?
No,
and that's the beauty of it for them, of course, if they're actually taking the data.
It's not something you can see, right?
Life Nation, we're all striving towards different goals. Maybe your goal is to finally quit the 8 to 5 grind, quit your job, or take the next step with your existing business. Whatever the goal may be, regardless of your reasons, if you are serious about taking the next step and finally trying to build the life that you deserve, the life that you want to live, take the leap of faith. Go to michaellevis.com and let's discuss your goals and life. It's 100% free. There's no obligation. It's michaellevis.com. Schedule a quick call. I'd love to help.
Right?
No, exactly.
Right.
It's pretty wild. You're right. You mentioned a little bit about some entrepreneurship struggles that you've had. Give me a little bit about that, Rob. Tell me some of those hurdles and failures that you personally had and how you kind of overcame them.
Well, I think just generally just finding a focus with what you're doing. I think we all struggle with prioritization in our lives. I think when you really live in the digital world, like I have over the last, and many people, this is a common experience now more than ever. But when I first started, back in the early 2000s and the late 90s and stuff like that, it was a fairly new thing. And that's what that show was all about, is because I could see this revolution coming, that the internet was going to transform. I was a marketing guy, really. That's my education. I've got a degree in marketing and business.
Okay.
And so when I looked at the World Wide Web and the internet, I saw this huge opportunity around marketing and connecting with people at a deeper level. And I think that the challenges that I've seen is that we are facing all sorts of obstacles to that progressing at this point. I mean, because of the conflicts around privacy, there's a lot of issues that we have to think about from a person that wants to create a business or be successful online. Of how do we walk these expectations and these to find success given all the limitations that are thrown at us all the time, and then all the opportunities. So you're always kind of juggling what is possible versus what you should do, and all the different inputs that are coming into your work life. I mean, it can be a little overwhelming sometimes, how many communication channels and how many methods that people are using to communicate these days.
Absolutely.
I find it confusing sometimes to stay focused on that, because I don't sometimes remember where the messages are coming in from to go back and respond, or to even remember. I think those are one of the big challenges that, the computing devices are kind of replacing our brain a little bit, and challenging our brain to be able to manage.
I think, I'd love to summarize that for the listeners. I think a couple of great value bombs there were going to be priority and focus. It's really hard. It really is. And you look at all the different channels. I don't care if you're online or you're on Facebook or you're swiping right on Tinder, you're seeing nothing but advertisements. And so we become numb, I think, as and the millennial demographic, honestly, I really feel personally, because I do a lot, I love the marketing angle too, Robin, in terms of the actual angle of like understanding what is hitting your mark as a marketing person. Are you actually trying to specifically hit one person demographically, and can you do so online? But when it comes to the priority and the focus aspect, as an entrepreneur, as someone that's trying to either start a podcast or start a business, your focus is harder and harder to do so, especially the millennial demographic. I've spoken to some of these on many occasions, and I help some companies on this angle. And, we talk about, follow one course until success. That's focus. That's what it stands for. Follow one course until success. But it's really hard. It's easier said than done. So being able to be disciplined, like you mentioned that you were initially, is kind of half the battle.
Right. Well, it's getting some sort of a center to what you're doing, and be able to stay focused on a course and a direction that keeps you progressing to the next level of where your goals are. I mean, I think to-do lists and goals are probably more important than ever now.
Yeah.
And then keeping those visible to you at all times, I think helps keep you focused on and on track for what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you don't, there's so many distractions that pull you away from that. Yeah. It's too
easy to be distracted today, 100%. Why do you think some entrepreneurs that are out there, why do you think they fail, Rob?
I think the biggest reason I think that people fail is, and it's not always because they've really done anything wrong. I think it success aligns a lot with timing, and success also is a factor with patience too. So those are all things. I mean, you can have a terrific idea, but maybe it's too early for that idea, or maybe it's too late. And sometimes it's hard to tell. And those are things that I think to some degree there's a little bit of luck that falls into play sometimes also. Because if I think about it, I mean, my work in the podcasting space, I mean, I had a vision for what that could be, but I had no idea what it was going to turn out to be.
Yeah.
But I just saw what was happening there and just thought, this is a huge opportunity for somebody like me to kind of focus in on this and see where it takes me.
Yeah.
And it's not always a clear path. I mean, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs and a lot of variability on it. You just have to get centered with what really motivates you and what your passions are. And if that aligns with something that is growing and developing, then the timing can work out over time. There are very few overnight successes.
Yep.
So I think that's the other key takeaway is
100%.
that,
Yep.
I mean, you look at a lot of very, very successful people in the world, and you talk to them about their story, and they'll tell you, oh, yeah, I've been working at this for 10 years. So, but it may look like I just hit the jackpot. But that's just because I've been persistent and focused on doing what I've been doing, and the market caught up with me, and I was right. There's a little bit of luck in there.
I think that's it's funny you said that, the 10-year thing. When I always talk to some of my clients, some coaching business clients and startups, I always tell people it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? And it's the total truth. I mean, it really is. It's like whether you look at the Walmarts and the Targets of the world, they all started in some small town and learned how to do it, learned how to scale it, learned how to multiply it. And so that's
really the same with Apple. Apple started in a garage, in Silicon Valley. So, I mean, it's like, humble beginnings.
Yes.
And sometimes you made the right choice at the right time and got on the right track of growth, and sometimes you don't. And I think that's why a lot of startups fail, is because the timing was right or was wrong.
Sure. And I mean, we don't want to push the envelope. I think as entrepreneurs, we should know that and be aware that there is a timing connection to success. And that's a great point, Rob, in terms of like understanding, do I push more? Do I go get a loan? Am I confident in this? And, slow and steady will win the race. It's hard. Patience is really hard to have, especially as entrepreneurs that might be more type A, that might be more pushing towards, I wanted it yesterday kind of deal. But being consistent, if you believe in your product or your service, it'll win, but you just got to take baby steps there.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah.
Tell people a little bit what you got going on right now, like what's going on in the world of Rob Greenlee.
Well, I'm working for a company called Libsyn that actually is the very first podcast hosting platform that started in 2004. It's been around for a very long time. It hosts the world's largest podcast right now. We've got about 66,000 shows on the platform, and it's growing every month. And so there's more and more content being produced in the podcasting space. But it's a platform that is a very powerful platform for very serious podcasters. Awesome. To achieve success with what they're trying to do. I mean, if you want to earn revenue and you want to build a very scalable professional podcast, Libsyn is a great place to have your podcast. It's not an easy platform to use, but it's got features that very few, or if any, of the other platforms have. And it's designed for very serious podcasters, ones that want to make a business or ones that want to make sure that they're at the cutting edge of where the medium is.
Awesome. And can you spell that out for the listeners? How they check out Libsyn?
Oh, how to check it out?
Yeah, how do they check it out?
Well, just go to Libsyn.com or LibsynPro.com, and that's LIBSYN.com. And Libsyn means it's a shorter version of what the real company name is, and that's Liberated Syndication.
Oh, I didn't know that. I use it and I don't even know it. Okay,
right.
Great.
and that's a term that goes back to the early days of the medium, of podcasting being seen as a liberation of your ability to put content out, right? Because if you look at the early days of media, just in general, it's been very controlled by large companies, and you've had to go through gatekeepers to get your voice out there, to get your content out there. And what this platform was designed to do was to liberate that syndication experience, right? Because back in the early days, the syndicated radio, right, was very controlled by a small group of very powerful people. And so unless you played the game right and worked with them or did what they want you to do, then you were graced with an audience and distribution.
So it was political. It was kind of political back then.
Yeah, I mean,
really?
The podcasting space at its core and at the roots of it and at the very origins of it was a reaction to the man controlling our ability to get a message out, right? And to be able to build a show. and that's where that term comes from, and that's why, from a cultural perspective,
right,
it's significant that the company has that name.
Before we part here, Rob, tell people, our listeners, a little bit about, well, actually not a little bit about, if there's one type of piece of advice that you can give them from your experiences, from your successes, what would that be, Rob?
I think the big thing is just get really clear on your goals, on what you're trying to accomplish. They don't have to be any formalized thing. I don't think it's necessary to necessarily have a detailed business plan or anything like that. But I think if you're wanting to do something with your career or with a new company or a new business, whatever, just try and get as focused and goal orientated as you can, and step your way through it, and really embrace others. Network with others that have expertise that can help you go through the process of becoming an expert yourself and a professional in whatever specific career or company that you want to start. And because at the end of the day, in this market and where we are today in the world, is that you have to become seen as an expert. You have to be seen as an influencer for you to drive your business forward, because that's the infrastructure excuse me, that's out there right now, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all these social platforms, podcasting, whatever. It's all about you demonstrating to the world that you have an expertise and that you have something to contribute, and that people will follow you and they will listen to you. And that process should be always motivated by a willingness to help and to give first before you receive. And I think that's the key to how I've seen my career progress, is that being willing to help and be available and talk to as many people as you can and network with as many people as you can is the key to success now.
Rob, I really appreciate your time. I know you're talking about availability, and I appreciate you making yourself available for my show and the Business of Life listeners. Thank you so much, and it's been an honor.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Right, I stopped recording there. Thanks, man. That was awesome. We'll do a little outro after this, but yeah, that was great. So I want to hear really quick before we jump off, what do you think is the biggest change in podcasts? I don't want to stick to all the podcasting stuff because I know we could, but I'd like to hear the journey. But what's the biggest change you've had so far in the podcasting world that you've seen?
Yeah, I'd say it's more cultural, because when it started, commercialism was not accepted and cool. So I think our willingness to commercialize the medium is a big change. Yeah. And how diverse the content is, and how much diversity is in the content creator side now. Yeah. Women and sure, all sorts of minorities around the world. It's becoming a true global medium, and different languages, just the diversity of the medium is just accelerating. And and that's a very positive development, because it hasn't always been that way. It was very much a male dominated medium for most of its existence.
I bet. I mean, it's almost like I talk to some people in the business or the startup world, and it's like trying to focus on a niche, and it's harder and harder to find a niche now, because it's going to happen. I mean, everyone's creating their own, and they found their own. Right. And it's impressive because they're all being heard. But yeah. I mean,
I'm always looking for what's next, right? Where are we? I mean, we're fairly mature right now with the podcasting medium, though I think to many it's very early, and I think it is very early still for the medium. I mean, if you look at the adoption percentages from Edison Research or whatever, we've got a long way to go on the adoption side of this medium, which also gives us a real roadmap to lots of changes that could be on the horizon. I just I'm always looking at the edge of where those changes are going to happen. Is it around content? Is it around technology? It's hard to say that it's going to be more one or the other. I think it's going to be a combination of everything. Because if you look at the history of the medium, it's been an evolution. It hasn't been a real revolution. It's been something that's evolved over time, and it's slowly improved and gotten better and better and better and better and better. And same with the audience. The audience has only grown like 4% a year. So it's not like a hockey stick growth medium. This is a medium that steadily grows every year. And eventually it's going to be bigger than radio. I don't know how long it's going to take, another 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But eventually it's going to overtake radio as we keep chipping away at this 3, 4, 5% a year. Eventually it's going to be bigger. So
yeah, there's hundreds of thousands of podcasters out there. I think people just, we wonder, I guess, if the medium going to be, do people want to listen more? Do they want to watch more? And now they can do both.
Right.
If they want to at the same time.
Yeah, I think podcasters that are doing video are probably growing faster than those that are just doing audio.
Just different outlets. I mean, from a holistic approach, right? Yeah, that just makes more sense.
Well, I think it also creates a deeper connection between the audience and the host, that they can actually see this person.
Yeah.
And not everybody in your audience is going to watch the video every week, but people are going to come in and out of it. And once they see you, then they feel like there's more of a personal connection there. And I think that helps propel the audio forward as well.
That's good. That's really good advice. I appreciate that. And I'm kind of asking a little bit more. It's also personal since we're still starting to ramp up, but it's really cool. I love getting, Kristen's been great, getting me some great ideas on the show, that kind of what I want to learn from, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
Right.
Have a great day. I hope that everything works out. You're in California. What part of California are you in?
Oh, no, I'm up in the Seattle area.
Oh, you're in Seattle. Okay. Because she was mentioning most of the people she chats with, gets on the show, are from California. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate your time, Rob.
Okay. Take care now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Liebus, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.